quote, the weapons of mass destruction. His case is a slam dunk because he damn sure said that. And absolutely, we knew then, you and I knew, that the CIA was involved, but the evidence could completely come out now. This is a case. It don't get any easier than this. Your thoughts on John Brennan?
Well, first of all, what you said there is totally correct. I mean, for him to claim that the Steele dossier, that the CIA was not involved with it, which they clearly were, that the report that claimed that Russia was involved in helping Trump in the elections didn't base itself on the Steele dossier when documents show it clearly did. They caught him lying. But in terms of background on John Brennan, right? So you remember when John Brennan was first appointed by Obama, it was a scandal because he lied to Congress back then about drones. Do you remember this? Right?
Yep.
They asked him, is the USA conducting drone strikes in certain countries when he was being confirmed? And he said, no, we're not. And it turned out they were. And he was not prosecuted for that because they said, oh, he's protected. That was classified or something like that. But, he misrepresented the drone program to the U.S. Congress. And that there was a huge amount of outrage from Republicans when he was picked, because it's widely understood, not 100% confirmed, that he's a Muslim, right? And that's very interesting. So he was the head of the CIA bureau in Saudi Arabia for most of the 1990s. He was like the head of CIA operations in Saudi Arabia. And apparently Mecca, right, the holy city of Mecca, where all the Muslims go for the Hajj, is a really, really important intelligence spot. And so one version of events is, Saudi law is you cannot go into Mecca unless you convert to Islam. So he got a bunch of CIA guys together and they went into a room with an imam and they said, all right, what do we have to do? Just tell us the words to say or whatever. And they said, okay, now you're Muslims. And then they went into Mecca. That's one version of events. However, there are other questions there. The thing that was widely pointed out is, that movie Zero Dark 30 came out. Now, That movie, it lied about history. It was about the killing of Osama bin Laden, and it made it look like Osama bin Laden was captured or killed through torture, right? That they tortured somebody to get the information. And the CIA came forward and said, that's not how we got him. And the film was just like an advertisement for torture, basically. They fictionalized history to make torture look good, which was very disturbing. A lot of human rights organizations were disturbed by that. And then John Brennan, as CIA director, he made a really big show of kind of grandstanding that he doesn't believe in torture. If Obama ever asked him to torture, he would step down as CIA director. He doesn't believe in torture. He hates torture, which really means that he's from the faction of the CIA that doesn't want America to be known as a torturing country.
Right.
Whereas Gina Haspel and the Bush faction, they want America to be known as a torturing country, like fear. They want our enemies to fear us, whereas he wants America to look like Mr. Nice Guy or whatever. But then that movie Zero Dark 30 came out, right? While he was CIA director, made it look like Osama bin Laden was captured through torture. In that movie, there's a scene where they're in Langley, the CIA headquarters, and they pan over the office of a high-ranking CIA officer who has a prayer mat out, a rug, and he's doing, the Islamic prayers. And many people thought that was the creators of that film, who obviously were pro-torture and didn't like Brennan, quietly outing him as a Muslim. Now, that's very interesting to me, and I find the whole thing fascinating. The other thing about John Brennan, though, if he was the CIA director in Saudi Arabia for decades, think about Osama bin Laden, who is the wealthiest family in Saudi Arabia is the bin Laden family with a state monopoly on construction, right? Think about how, the Mujahideen of Afghanistan that we were arming to fight the Soviet Union, that were pouring acid on women's faces for not wearing veils and executing people for teaching women to read. They would hang, literacy volunteers from the Soviet Union. And, this is a guy who was involved in some pretty nasty, evil shit. You know what I mean? As the CIA director based in Saudi Arabia, he wasn't just having dinner with the prince. Somebody told me Saudi Arabia is a really nice place, that when you go to visit a prominent Saudi family, they kill a camel to welcome you, right? That eating a camel is kind of an honorary thing. It's like kill a camel, but he was doing more than eating a camel, right? He was he was overseeing some pretty nasty stuff. Saudi Arabia and the Wahhabis, people talk about the Wahhabi death squads. That's ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all these groups that the USA used against the Chechnya to break Chechnya away from Russia, in Afghanistan and other places, right? Saudi Arabia is kind of the center of Wahhabism. So he was the CIA guy who was in charge of all of this, may have converted to Islam or not, not clear, but it's widely understood that he at least went through the motions to convert to Islam, right? The other thing is, while he was leaving office, he said the first time he ever voted, he voted for the Communist Party. In 1976 was his first presidential election, and he was a young rebel, young man with long hair or whatever. So to stick it to the man, he voted for the Communist Party, and that got a laugh. Like that was his laugh line as he was outgoing. That's John Brennan, and John Brennan represents the Obama faction of the CIA. And it makes sense that, he was formerly, in Saudi Arabia, that, because that was a big part of the Obama policy, was cultivating like Muslim extremists to fight enemies of the United States. So he would know about that, having been based in Saudi Arabia. So he's an interesting character. As far as this indictment, look, they lied. Russiagate was a lie. Russia did not interfere to help Trump win the elections. They did the opposite. They could have if they wanted to. Right? Tulsi Gabbard has released the files. You read those files, they had the goods on Hillary Clinton like you wouldn't believe. That Hillary Clinton was addicted to painkillers. She was like a drug addict, right? She was having mental health meltdowns and stuff. And the Russians had recordings of her having psychotic meltdowns. They had people on her staff exchanging emails about her drug addiction issue and all kinds of stuff. If Russia had really wanted to help Trump win, they would have just had to come out with that, and Trump would have won hands down, right? And part of the reason Hillary Clinton lost is she covered up her health problems. She said she had no health issues, and then she collapsed, right, at the 9/11 ceremony. It's like, wait, she has no health issues, and she's just fainting like that? What's going on here? And so if they had come out with that, she would have been done. But they sat on it, and they didn't, and they expected Hillary Clinton would win. So Russia did not interfere in the elections, and twice the intelligence community was asked, they asked James Clapper, who was the director of national intelligence. They asked James Clapper to assemble a report, and 2 times they came back and all the intelligence agencies said Russia is not trying to help Trump. Russia didn't interfere. And the 3rd time, right before he was leaving office, Obama said, we're really looking for a different answer. Can you fix this? And then they came up with a report. They had no evidence. And so they got this Steele dossier from Britain, the PP tape, that whole thing that was completely ridiculous. And now it shows that senior CIA officials said, this isn't real. This is not legit. We shouldn't include this. And John Brennan said, no, we're going to include it. And James Comey also said, overruled, we're going with it. Then they call him before Congress and they ask him, now, was this claim, was it based on this totally discredited Steele dossier? Is that what you based this on? Oh, no, we didn't base it on that. Well, we've got, this is open shut. He committed perjury. He lied before Congress, contempt of Congress, perjury, obstruction of justice. It seems pretty blatant. I don't know on what basis he thinks he's going to fight this. There's some of these other cases you could argue maybe it's a technicality. He lied about this not once, but 3 different times. It's a lie.
And guess what else? They have it in writing documented. Him talking about including the Steele dossier in the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment of 2017, that one, right? So he went to Congress and said, oh, no, I didn't use that. But in writing, he literally wrote down, we got to use it. And they got it. Yeah. That's one where your lawyer says, you better plead out on this one, brother.